What is up, you wonderful people? A couple of weeks ago, I got the chance to do just a dream shoot, absolute dream shoot. And I wanted to go through a couple of the shots with you, talk about what I like about them, how I got them, what I did right, what I did wrong, what I wish I would have changed or done better. Let's do that right now. So I was recording a podcast with Willie, as we do. He's talking about going out to the EV park in Mariposa and just getting started, all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, I should come out sometime. I could shoot something, it'd be super rad. He's like, yeah, man, that sounds great. He texts me like 3 minutes later. Hey, dude, what are you doing next week? And yeah, booked a flight, went out, got to go on this really amazing shoot. I'm a huge fan of Tesla. I like electric as a fuel, all of that. So I was really excited about it. Well, I get out there, and then they tell me that what we are filming has never been filmed before. Like if you search YouTube for Rally Ready Tesla or Rally Tesla Racing or anything like that, there's never been a video of a Tesla racing off-road, like Rally Ready. We're shooting this for the first time. This trip is that. In light of that and kind of the largeness of that, here's what I liked, here's what I didn't like, and what I wish I would have done better, and also how we got some of these shots. So first things first, let me show you the teaser cut, shots that we're gonna break down, and yeah, here that is. That entire teaser cut was shot on two different cameras. One was the Insta360, not the R, just the Insta360 1X. And then the other one is this Panasonic GH5. I did have my Sirui anamorphic with me, which ended up working really well in some of those morning time shots. But yeah, let's go through it. Here's what I'm thinking. We go through it in order of the day. We woke up really early in the morning. We went out before sunrise because I wanted to get some sunrise shots, which are the shots that you see actually at the end of the teaser cut. We got the shots from the beginning of the teaser cut at the end of the day, which sort of makes sense. But the first shots of the day ended up just not being anything special. I wanted to get the car sort of kicking sideways and kind of revealing over a hill, and we just weren't able to do it. There was like a weird rock where we were trying to get that shot. The sun wasn't fully up yet. It just wasn't working. I feel like that's generally how it goes. Things like this, like it's fine to have high expectations and to be like, yeah, let's get some good shots, just get them right out of the way at the beginning in the morning. But generally, at least for me anyway, when you just start rolling your camera, don't put the money stuff right then in like first shot of the day, because generally, I don't know if it's getting warmed up. I don't know if it's just everyone starts to jive together a little bit better as the day goes on. It took us about an hour, I feel like, before we really started getting stuff that was rad. So as you can see in these shots, there's frost all over the ground, and it actually ended up being a lot more slippery than what anybody thought it was going to be. So it's hard for the car to really get traction in track mode and just really get the kind of like speed that you needed to be able to whip sideways without completely losing control. So that was interesting. That was something that I thought it was just gonna be like, we got a whole day, just shoot and it'll be awesome. But it did take definitely some time for just everything to start to jive together. And we started getting some pretty cool runs, and I like the way the flares look with the headlights. I like the way the sun flare looked as the sun was coming up over that hill. And you'll notice that it's not letterbox anamorphic. What I was doing, I was just cutting off the side, whichever side of the anamorphic shot that I didn't want. Since it wasn't all gonna be at that aspect ratio, I didn't wanna be throwing in letterbox shots versus not. Just a creative choice. So yeah, anamorphic on the GH5, completely handheld. Most of these ones here that I ended up including in the teaser are at 120 frames per second and 1080p. And you know, it's always so hard to decide, like, do I want to go 120? Do I want to go 60? You want to keep that higher resolution on the GH5, but that buttery slow-mo of 120 looks super cool. So I ended up just switching back and forth, especially when you have a little bit more of a controlled environment like this. I feel like you can just be like, hey, let's do it again, and switch your camera over to 4K 60. Couple other creative choices that I had with these anamorphic shots. I was trying to keep the camera as low to the ground as possible. You can really see it in the last shot, like the car reveals out of this rock. I just like a lot of foreground elements, especially with stuff like this. You can see, like, it brings out kind of those differences in depth, differences in focus. Then I just threw a grade on this, which was Lucas Erickson LUT Redshift. And that's at 30% mix. I don't think I did anything else. It was just shot in natural with that 30% mix LUT. At that point, then we went back. I think we put the car in the charger. The Porsche that was like the follow car got like completely jacked up. We hit this one rock, completely messed up, tore the part of the back bumper off, like just jacked up the tire. Went back, put the car in the charger. We had to get some other stuff that day too. And that's where one of, I think, the mistakes for me is, and this is always the case with any client job, you always end up trying to get too much in one day. Probably we should have just taken one day to focus on the Tesla, one day to focus on the bike stuff, one day to focus on like vlog style exploratory stuff, but we ended up doing it all in one day. And I actually really like stuff like that because it keeps it interesting, it keeps it going, but it's probably not the best way to make sure you get all of the shots you want to get. One of the biggest shots that we had talked about that we didn't end up getting was the Tesla actually leaving the ground. I really wanted that shot, and we just didn't ever get to a location where we were able to get that shot. And that's probably my biggest regret from this shoot. Okay, so moving on. Got lunch, I think, in there somewhere. We're getting a bunch of the bike stuff. And then we took the Tesla back out. The ground was dry. And that meant the Tesla could go way faster. Like when the dirt kicked out, it kicked out hard. It was fantastic. And that's when I decided to get the Insta360 out. And that was a fantastic decision. What we ended up doing was Willie was driving an ATV. I was on the back of Willie trying to stick the Insta360 as close to the car as we possibly could. And those are my favorite shots from this piece, where it's just like, you're just kind of asking yourself, like, how did that camera angle happen? Is that a drone? Like, what is that? And that was Willie and I chasing or being chased by the Tesla. So then in the teaser, right after the shots with the Insta360 that are very immersive, then the next shots, and you can tell the footage looks different, is me holding the GH5. And I had this Olympus 12-40 on it. And I'm literally just like holding the barrel of the camera, trying to point it at the Tesla as it's driving by and as it's passing us. It was at 60 frames per second, 4K 60, so that we could slow it down. In the teaser, I ended up leaving it full speed because I kind of like that jittery look. It makes it more immersive to kind of feel the jitter, feel the shake, and feel almost the struggle of the camera person trying to get this shot. Yeah, that was an absolutely, I love the way that those turned out and the look of that and that struggle. Another regret that I have from the day is I did actually want to attach the Insta360 onto the car from both the front and the back and just get that sort of, again, very POV look of this car's driving, how are they getting this shot, that sort of thing. And we even had an overcast afternoon, like it would have worked perfectly, but we just didn't make the time to get it done. And that was my fault. That's my responsibility. It's when you're directing, producing, it's your job to just get the shots that you need to get no matter what. I'm gonna leave you here with my first time ever driving a Tesla. Absolutely a fantastic shoot. It's the EV Park over in Mariposa, California. If you're interested, I'll leave a link to it. This isn't sponsored or anything, but they are a client. But there's a link to it in the description. Willie, John, Dave, thanks so much. It was fantastic. An honor to work on this project with you.
I'm driving a Tesla. Amber, Dad, I'm driving a Tesla. Ready? Ready for the takeoff?
Take off. Oh my God!
Oh my goodness! I'm not gonna lie, it feels exactly like I thought it would feel.